Good evening, listeners. This is Blessed Radio, and it's 6 p.m. UK time. This is the Spiritual Discussion Program. I'm Saad in Southeast London, and with me is Gregory. Gregory, how are you, and how is the weather where you are?
One is fine. Today has been very, very warm and very bright.
Good. Here in London, it is sunny. I think not much cloud, and I think it's warm. Yes, warm here as well. So, welcome, listeners, to the Spiritual Discussion Program. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail Message by Uprushing. And every week we have a topic for discussion. The topic for tonight is comparing people with others. Comparing people with others. You can join in the discussion with any questions or comments by contacting us on our UK number, which is 079 39641958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 00447939641958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. I'm going to begin with what is the Grail Message? The Grail Message in the Light of Truth by Uprushing is a spiritual knowledge of life. It offers an explanation of the world, a picture of creation on the basis of natural laws. Its lectures contain valuable basic elements as a help in life. For through the knowledge mediated, the reader is again brought closer to life and led back to God. The Grail Message deals with important fundamental questions of life by explaining in a clear and logical way the automatic working of the laws of nature, the whole weaving of creation, allowing every process to be recognized and thereby the purpose of our whole life. It is directed at the individual and speaks to the innate experiences of the human being, their strengths and weaknesses. Thus, every reader has the opportunity to discover, through the intuitive perception, if what is stated is the truth. Combining with the matter-of-fact reasoning, a complete world picture arises, where there is no separation between the visible world and the great world beyond the five senses, nor any separation between scientific and religious striving for knowledge. I'd like to give you a couple of quotes from the author of the Grail Message, Uprushing. The hearer and reader of my lectures should always work within himself, keenly probing and building bridges from one lecture to the other, as well as out into the great and small world happenings. Only then will he be able to understand the Grail Message and find that it gradually shapes itself into one complete whole without leaving any gaps. Again and again in all the happenings, the reader will come back to the basic features. He can explain everything without having to change even one single sentence. The word of the Grail Message lives, so that it permits only those people who really carry the honest desire in their souls to find abundantly. All else is automatically rejected by it. For the arrogant and those who seek superficially, the message will remain the book with 7 seals. And I'd like to give you one more quote from the author. I wish to fill the gaps which have so far always remained unanswered in the souls of men, and which never leave any serious thinker in peace if he earnestly seeks for the truth. So, dear listeners, just to remind you, the topic for discussion tonight is comparing people with others. Comparing people with others. You are welcome to join us with any questions or comments by contacting us on our UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. Gregory, as you know, I like to look in the dictionary, the meaning of the words in our topic. And just to remind everybody, the topic tonight is comparing people with others. I think it's a very easy to understand. However, I still want to go through the dictionary, the meaning of these words are. So the first word there is compare or comparing. And there are three meanings given in the dictionary. So I will go with that, what it says here. The first one, it says estimate, measure, or note the similarity or dissimilarity between. So Greg, that's only the first one. Can you please tell us what is how appropriate this meaning is for our discussion for tonight? The word compare.
Well, thanks. The word compare, like you just mentioned, what they put in the dictionary, they're talking of measure. But on what basis are these measures? Because that is the key thing.
Right. Okay, I will continue with the other meanings and see if they will help in any way. So the second one, it says point out. Gregory, if you can put yourself on mute again, please, while I'm talking. Thank you. So point out or describe the resemblances with, liken to. So this is the second meaning. Anything you want to say on that there, Gregory?
The basic question remains, on what basis?
Okay.
Whatever comparison it is, whatever it is, on what basis are these things done?
Right. Well, it doesn't say it there, but let's continue. It says, the third one, it says, draw an analogy between one thing and another for the purposes of explanation or clarification. So I think this one, Gregory, they're trying to give a context. But is it sufficient there?
As should be very clear, if a basis is not mentioned or does not exist, then it becomes pointless in doing comparison. And very sadly, the dictionary hasn't done a good job in using these words. For wherever you hear that word comparison or say a measure, then there must be a basis. A basis like one may refer to as like a meter rule or in feet or inches. There must be a basis upon which these comparisons are made. For anyone who goes to the market to buy, say, apples, they'll tell you, okay, if you're going to buy 2 kilos or 3 kilos, And we all know what a kilo is, or there are measures that is used. But in these cases, it's there is really no basis. Everything is still very nebulous, and therein lies the challenge when comparisons are done, because you now have critics who just speak for the sake of speaking, and they have a baseless framework for their comparison.
Thank you for that answer there, Gregory. I think we will get to this point of basis soon. Just we need to just keep going with these words in our topic, and I think somehow we will get there. So now what happened, Gregory, when I saw, just like you, I was sort of not fully satisfied, because the real meaning of not meaning, the full title of our topic is comparing people with others. So that is giving you, you can say, a bit of basis there. But so what I said, I looked further on the dictionary. Now, as you say, you have to have a basis, otherwise you're not really able to, do anything. So I looked at the next part, which is compare with or compare to. And I looked at in the dictionary, compare to or compare with. And there it says in the meaning given there, in relation to something else, measured or judged against something else. And there's some example they've given is the rain is nothing compared to what we got yesterday. So this is how you can use the word compare. You need a bit, like you said, basis. So there's something to compare with. So hopefully, I know sometimes, Greg, I even know that you say when we look at each word individually in the topic, it's not really very helpful, because you need the full, the whole topic, all the words in the topic to be sort of you could say, looked at together. So maybe this is the same case here as well in our topic tonight. So do you want to say something on that, what I've said so far?
What you've said so far makes a lot of sense. We are tending towards that direction now.
Okay. So I will now continue with the word people, which in the dictionary says human beings in general or considered collectively.
Of course.
Yeah, go on.
That's what it means.
Yes. And it can also be the members of a particular nation, community, or ethnic group. For example, the native peoples of Canada. So again, I say this is never quite straightforward to follow, so we will need to discuss any more on that. So as I said, just to remind you, the topic tonight is comparing people with others. So you can say comparing people with other people. And this is very common you can say in our daily conversation. So again, I looked up this sort of topic as part of my research, and I found out that there is something called social comparison theory, which is in psychology. And so I'll just read what I found there. Social comparison theory suggests that people value their own personal and social worth by assessing how they compare to others. And it was introduced by somebody called Leon Festinger in 1954. The theory describes the comparison processes people utilize to evaluate their actions, accomplishments, and opinions in contrast to those of other people. We all compare ourselves to others in social worlds, whether by comparing our looks to those of celebrities we see in the media, or our talents to those of our co-workers. In psychology, social comparison theory is one explanation for this tendency we have to make comparison between ourselves and others. And again, the example they give here is imagine it that a high school student has just signed up for a band class. I'm thinking it's a music band class to learn how to play clarinet. As she evaluates her skills and progress, she will compare her performance to other students in the class. She might initially compare her abilities to the other members of the clarinet section, particularly noting those who are better than her, as well as those who are worse. She may also compare her abilities to those of students who play other instruments as well. And just to continue that, psychologist Leon Festinger believed that we engage in this comparison process as a way of establishing a benchmark by which we can make accurate evaluation of ourselves. For example, a music student might compare herself to the star student of the class if she finds that her abilities do not measure up to her peers' talents. She might be driven to achieve more and improve her abilities. So, Gregory, let's look at, uh, you could say, comparing. The word comparing, it's not saying something negative or positive. So it could be either. So I'm thinking, let's look at that when we compare. What are the like advantages and the disadvantages of comparing people with others? So, Gregory, yeah, let me ask on that then. Are there, yeah, would you say, Gregory, there's only either advantage or disadvantage or both by comparing people with others?
One would say there is neither.
Aha, okay. So that means you're saying it's like a neutral thing. Um, it, um, can you explain that a bit more, Gregory? It doesn't, you said there's no advantage or disadvantage?
Before one talks about advantages or disadvantage, in relation to comparison of one person to another, then some basic understanding must be had that in a comparison there must be a framework. Once a framework is not established, then it becomes non-objective. That is in the first case. And secondly, when comparison is considered as such, one is there's the tendency to ask people, human personalities that possess free will, how do they use their free will? What challenges do they have before them? It's only when these things are considered very carefully, only then may one dare at all to compare, but at best it is no use to compare at all, looking for advantages or disadvantages, because the person whom you yourself, you're comparing yourself to, you find in that particular case, one is looking at spiritual qualities, not only qualities in deeds. And if one is looking at spiritual qualities, then there must be also a framework. For you compare people. One is a musician, or one is in the arts. The other one is a footballer. The other one is a gardener. On what basis do you compare these personalities in their deeds? For person A, in this particular instance, wishes to mature in music. Person B wishes to mature in football. Person C wishes to mature in gardening. And in their deeds, you are comparing them. Spiritually, you are comparing them. So the person doing the comparison, he himself or herself, has missed the whole point and therefore has no basis for doing any such comparison.
Thank you so much, Gregory, for this answer and explanation you've given there. Um, I'm trying to, I was going to ask you some things a bit later on, but I'm just wondering if I should bring it up now. Um, I mean, what I can see is obviously when you compared something, it has to be, as they say, like with like, uh, apples with apples, not
Correct.
not apples with oranges.
Correct.
So we need to know what we are comparing, on what basis, like you already said before, what basis are we comparing? Um, okay. Before we continue further into that, Gregory, maybe I will ask why do we have this tendency to compare ourselves with others? Is it something natural, or some like an insecurity within us? Um, yeah, is it natural or some insecurity?
More or less, it's more of some form of insecurity. What may be looked into or compared will be the deeds of a personality, of a human personality, which deeds are only a measure of how he or she perceives something, and that um, being able to perceive how he or she is able to actualize it in deeds. That is what many tend to be comparing. The person who today you are looking into their deeds, not of their spirit, may have learned a lesson, may have matured and moved on to higher recognition, whereas you, who is doing the comparison, remains in the same place. This error that um, where just comparison are done, just superficially, also occurs in science until the advent of what is now referred to as relativity, where a comparison is only done to the speed of light. For it is that speed which itself does not change within a given environment in which there is also other motions. So it was then found that any comparison that one needs to do has to be made with reference to that basis of light. Else, there will be insurmountable errors. The same thing goes with human activities. Any comparison must be made with relation to the framework of the laws of creation, of the laws of nature, through which the individual came into existence and continues to mature. So you find that if these are not considered, the likelihood is that one will be comparing oranges with pears or apples or peanuts. And these are different categories. These are different species. And therein lies the error and the arguments and the quarrels and the fights, even in that which is supposed to be sacred to many, which is referred to as religion. So you find these things appearing again. I am better than you. You are better than me. And then there's a needless struggle. That's basis which we discuss again and again, one for all and all for all, and one for all and all for one, is swept aside. And many go into superficiality.
Thanks so much, Gregory, for your answer there. I'm going to give a quote, or again, part of my research, I found that Theodore Roosevelt, the famous American president, said that comparison, or he apparently, I don't know exactly the quote is, but he says comparison is the thief of joy. And it doesn't appear he said more than that, but anyway, people have tried to understand what he meant by that, and they think, well, he may have been right, that because although social comparison can motivate people to improve, but it can also promote being judgmental, biased, and overly competitive, or superior attitude, having a superior attitude. They say most people have social skills and impulse control to keep their standards for social comparison to themselves and not to act on envy or resentment, when you make comparison. So they keep their true feelings, sort of hide their true feelings, you can say, when they're making these comparison with others. So, Gregory, would you say that was a right statement then, which Theodore Roosevelt said, that comparison is the thief of joy?
Sometimes it is quite challenging to understand what many mean with statements such as you just read out. But there are grains of facts in it. Should any comparison be made, that comparison must be the states, the initial states of a personality and the subsequent states of the personality, what he or she is able to accomplish. Because, very simply, the challenges of each personality, these challenges are unique. Therefore, when he or she is able to overcome these challenges, then one may now say that there has been improvement. So, like is to be compared with like. The way I am now and the way one could be in the next few seconds or few hours or few weeks. It is a continuum rather than comparing my understanding or comparing my deeds with others. For we face different challenges, and this sort of comparison which has been made so far wipes away the joy of self-improvement. Maybe that's why Roosevelt made that statement. The joy of self-improvement. Consider a child that is learning to walk. In the first instance, he tried to stand and he fell back and kept trying and trying. And one day, after a few days, is able to stand and take the first step and the second step without falling. One can now imagine the joy that has arisen within this child. Whereas we're one to compare this child with another child and say, oh, other children are walking, you are not walking. We are not privy to the challenges of this child, or to the challenges of others. And therefore, to start comparison becomes a danger to the joy that would have arisen within the individual in making the necessary efforts. Even in making the necessary efforts, do we know the challenges which others encounter on their path? So, the social order, which social order should be to be as kind to your neighbor, to be as supportive to your neighbor as yourself, that is taken away with the completely unnecessary comparison which is done so superficially and also very intellectually. For intellectually, it is many times it's not like with like. Everything is just in the social media is just jumbled up so that people run into a quagmire and then they go to psychology and they keep sinking deeper and deeper because the total basis is completely wrong.
Thank you very much, Gregory, for your explanation and answer again. You can see when you look at what you're saying, comparing apple with apple or orange with apple and whatever else you can compare. Well, we don't see everything about any person and the context and everything. So for us to start making judgment, oh, he can't walk, or he's struggling to walk, or whatever it is. Yeah. But do you know what's underneath that? India, nobody can say that I know what is underneath it. Just so in a way, everybody stands on their own. Not one person's life is not it's not a competition who can walk the fastest or quickest or whatever. There's never been such a competition. That's what life is. It's just life. You have to walk, or you learn to walk and you walk, and it just happens. And but we want to make our commentary and our judgments, for whatever issues that we think it needs to be said. So thank you for that. I want to let the listeners know you're listening to Bless Radio. It's the Tuesday evening spiritual discussion program from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. UK time. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail Message by Uptrushin. And if you are interested to know more about the Grail Message or want to get a copy of the Grail Message for yourself, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that. www.grail, Grail, message, MESSAGE.com. And the topic for tonight's discussion is comparing people with others. Comparing people with others. You can join in the discussion with any questions or comments by contacting us on our UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And we are broadcasting on Bless Radio 1, that's the number 1.com. You can also listen to us on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1, again it's the number 1, space live stream. That's for the live show. You can also listen to the recording of this show the next day, also on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1, that's the number 1 again, space Grail Message, space the topic of the show, which tonight is comparing people with others. And of course, you can listen to our previous shows also on YouTube. Thirdly, we are broadcasting on Zeno. That's ZENO.FM/Bless Radio 1. That's the number 1 again. Now, Gregory, what is becoming clear when you start looking at this topic of comparing people with others? And you know, right at the beginning, you mentioned, okay, what's the basis? Well, it could be, well, you mentioned walking already, as a child, of course, and then learning to walk. But, you know, that's one thing. Then I guess we are comparing, let's say, we have to compare like with like, otherwise these things cannot make any sense. So that's why we say somebody in our same class or same work, then, you know, there's something you can compare, and let's say they're better in something than we are. But again, you know, you start thinking, as soon as you start comparing, no two people are the same. There can be difference of ability, some are slower, some are quicker. And you're wondering, okay, and then, you know, and is there like a deadline that you have to achieve something like this, or you have to have an exam that you must, you know, produce a certain result by whatever year, or, you know, or a certain target you have to achieve. And then you're thinking, okay, but how does this really matter in terms of our life, you know? This comparison. So in a way, Gregory, I'm asking, because you said there isn't really an advantage or a disadvantage with comparing. But, you know, we do exams, and then people who are at the top of the, let's say, achieve the highest grades, they go into the higher university, or let's say top university, or get top jobs, let's say. Um, and the other ones who don't perform so well in the exams. So there is a comparison there people are making. So can I ask you, Gregory, should we not make any comparison at all? Because then somehow you think the world, you don't know if the person is competent in doing the job, or, that studying. So I'm wondering, Gregory, are you saying we should not compare at all?
What you yourself mentioned are the accomplishments, which are the deeds of a personality in regard to a specific task. The deeds of a person is not the person, for the deeds are only a measure of the understanding of that particular individual in accomplishing a specific task. You will find also that this person who was unable indeed to accomplish a task in the so-called sciences will, when compared to the case in the arts, is able to sing very well, is able to represent or to reproduce a wonderful picture, is able to conduct music, is able to do very many other things, is able, through his or her intuition, able to assist others in maturing, able to assist others through his or her kindness. But in this particular case, he or she does not exert itself to accomplish much, for in that particular area, it doesn't see the need to exert itself much. So you find this scenario, and yet exams have to be taken. Of course, exams are taken, social exams, to find out if the person who is considered or is being considered is capable. But as we all might have sensed, the exams, which are also set intellectually, do not provide that deep insight which we seek. And therefore, these exams fail. These exams fail to indicate that which we are seeking in terms of competence. Because in all naturalness, these so-called examinations have been set intellectually, and therefore they give a very shallow impression of that personality. And that's what you find everywhere. How many people have you seen that have gone to school to study how to play music as such with a band? How many schools of bands do you have out there? People on their own see what others are doing, and deep within them they have a strong sensing, and they go and focus on that particular area, and they are able, from deep within them, to come up with the melodies, which melodies are not in accordance with that which have been agreed intellectually. One of the people one can easily recall was the so-called African American in the US, James Brown. There are many others. Look all over, you find them. The arts don't work that way. They are more intuitive in their work as compared to the cases where people are highly intellectual. And when the challenges, the real challenges now manifest, you find because of the shallowness, many are unable to reflect. Because all this while they were not able to reflect very deeply. The same thing goes, say, in the schools, in colleges, and even in politics, where you find anyone can just go and make all sort of confusing comparisons and therefore plunge a nation into misery. So, the question which you asked, in which there are comparisons in exams, these exams have been set intellectually, very narrow, not deep enough. Why? Because those people who have put these exams across, they themselves haven't reflected deeply enough to have a good grasp on what they themselves should ask. So it is the same thing. Like one has given the example of music, or like you have in the arts, or like you have in being a gardener. Only very, very rarely do you find that in the so-called intellectual sciences, whatever they care to call it, do you find gradually people learning from that which exists. A very typical example is the airplane. The airplane which you and I see and were able to fly without even bothering, those who started it were simple mechanics. They weren't highly intellectual, but deep within them, they sensed something could be done. And the first airplane they built maybe flew 15, 20 meters, 100 meters, and fell down. But that was a start. Had you set an exam for flights and brought people in, of course, the professors in the big institutions would be the first people to be considered. And what will be their response? No, it's not possible. So the point one is stressing, only that which is based on the creative laws of nature, of creation, only when deep within us, in our examination, by examination, one is not talking of only examination of the deeds which have precipitated, but also the thoughts, and above all, the examination of one's intuition. Only when these three different categories are considered will one have that which will be of benefit. Else, it will be one-sided, as with everything.
Thanks, Gregory, for your again your answer and picture you're sort of showing to us. Showing that these exams are sort of very intellectually making intellectual assessments, which is only giving partial picture of the person's ability or deeds that they're doing, and it's not really well. I'll give the example of fly. Before the planes existed, somebody said, "Oh, a human being can fly." People would laugh or say, "No." A scientist would say, "No, that's impossible. A human being cannot fly." Of course, he can't fly by himself, but maybe he would say, "Oh, he can't even develop any machine to fly either." And of course, we know that's not the case. So, in a way, what you're saying, Gregory, there has to, they say, some people say, "Oh, nothing is impossible," and you go for your dreams. So you have like a vision, and yes, when you start, it will fail. Like you say, when you start the first plane that you make, it might go 20 meters, 50 meters, maximum 100 meters. And then, of course, you have to keep working on it to make it go longer and longer distance and make it better. So, so maybe, Gregory, what we should be looking at is not the results, which are momentary results. In this moment, it's like this, because in the future, what you thought was you couldn't do, you can do it in the future. So measuring is really a limited way to measure, to know to assess something, let's say. So I'm thinking now, just trying to think what, is that right? I mean, not about right being, is it right to compare, but in how should we be sort of living in life that, which you could say promotes progress and I would say progress and positive sort of, what I can say is, Gregory, do you always just appreciate people, whatever they are doing, you just praise them and, encourage them. And that way, the person will have the confidence to keep going rather than scolding them or saying, "No, you're a failure, you haven't done it. What you're planning, what you're expecting to do, you didn't do it." So, Gregory, so yeah, is that the way we're supposed to be? Gregory, just treat everyone with this, how can I say, positive encouragement, no matter what state they're in. I mean, whatever achievement they have made.
It is expected, naturally, that the human personality must be more intuitive in his or her perceiving, in her perceptions. For with the development and striving to become more intuitive, then many of the rigid concepts which have been put in place, these rigid concepts will dissolve because they do not permit the individual to have the right mobile concepts. Mobile concepts because motion itself is a fact. Motion being a fact of life, of creation, of nature, then it therefore follows that we ourselves, who are products, who have come into existence through motion, through the laws of motion, We must be mobile in our reflection, and one's intuition is the best basis for doing that. Then, in that case, many a person might already have perceived the challenges that others face, understanding and grasping the challenges of others, making the suffering of others one's own, then the individual matures in leaps and bounds and can now understand the one for all and all for one. For in that pattern, in that way, many others who have been assisted use that concept, being supported along such concept, he or she becomes free before long, deep within himself or herself. And having benefited from such, it's only natural that he or she will want a lighter environment around and is therefore bound to assist others. And in that manner, there will be brighter and better environment and more consensuous environment, and things become more friendly rather than the rubbish competition which has been set up intellectually, which drains the individual rather than sort of enhancing the capabilities of the individual. So one can understand now why many things are the way they are, because we ourselves contribute to all this. The wars. You have wars in different parts of the world. When you now ask, why is it that you are fighting amongst yourselves? And one wants to dominate another. If, on the other hand, one party has gone to support the other, will there be war? So these are the questions which people must ask themselves. And one cannot say, oh, these people, they are no good. They can't do this, they can't do that. One should not underestimate the capabilities, the inner abilities of the human spirit. For with the right environment, many are likely to blossom, just as you will have in the case of women, when the environment around them is of purity, then many of them are likely to blossom to such heights as never thought possible. But what do you have? There will be so much distortion. There is so much looking down on other people. There is needless competition. There is mentioned the source of almost all evils, of pride, of greed, of envy, of wickedness. And that being the case, others have become very lazy because they keep thinking, even if I make an effort, I cannot get there. And there is also loss. So when all these things are considered, you find the state of the earth is the way it is because that love thy neighbor as thyself or showing respect of one's neighbor, that is not there.
Thank you very much, Gregory, for your, let's say, deep uh, picture or an appreciation of um, how we can apply, or, or let's say, first of all, the terrible effects of, how can I say, you know, when we say about, for example, competition, where um, it, people can, what I'm trying to, let me try to think what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say that really these are like traps when you get into competition, say, that you are led into a particular direction, and then, you know, you're comparing yourself with others. And as I say, so it can really affect you in your self-esteem that, oh, I didn't make it, uh, I'm not good enough or strong enough. It can really bring you down. Others, it might be the other way because everybody is different. They could just get pushed and say, no, no, now I'm going to fight to get, achieve this. But I mean, everything you've said many times, it's about context, it's about the basis you're comparing. So if you don't have that right context and basis of comparison, then it's so easy to fall into into an evil, um, how can I say, direction. Um, so thank you so much for this, what you've said there. I just want to tell the listeners, you're listening to Bless Radio. It's the Tuesday evening spiritual discussion program from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. UK time. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail Message, by Abdushin. And if you do wish to know more about the Grail Message or want to get a copy of the Grail Message for yourself, then you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that. www.grail, that's GRAIL, message, MESSAGE.com. And in tonight's show, the topic we're discussing is comparing people with others. Comparing people with others. You're welcome to join us with any questions or comments by contacting us on our UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And we are broadcasting on Bless Radio 1. That's the number 1.com. You can also listen to us on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1. That's the number 1 again. Space live stream. That's for the live show. You can listen to the recording of this show also on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1, the number 1 again, space Grail Message, space the topic of the show, which tonight is comparing people with others. And of course, you can listen to our previous shows as well, also on YouTube. Thirdly, we're broadcasting on Zeno. That's ZENO.FM / Bless Radio 1. That's the number 1 again. Now, Gregory, in the Grail Message, which we read every week at the end of the show, the foreword of the Grail Message, and it tells us there We are told to weigh and examine. And there's another concept that we are familiar with in the English language, you can say, compare and contrast. So, and I just want to, before I ask the question, I just want to look at the meaning about compare and contrast, which is to note what is similar and different about two or more things. To compare means to examine the similarities or differences between two or more items, ideas, or concepts, highlighting the commonalities or distinctions between them. And contrast means refers to identifying and emphasizing the differences between two or more items, ideas, or concepts, focusing on their distinctions. So, Gregory, can I ask you this concept of compare and contrast, and in the Grail Message, weigh and examine, are they the same thing?
To weigh and to examine, the context which is used is that of the laws of creation, which laws are basically that of gravitation, spiritual gravitation, and also that of reciprocal activities, and finally that of the attraction of homogeneity. These three basic laws that have arisen through motion in creation, these laws stand. Therefore, whatever needed to be compared or contrasted must be done with regards to or in relation to these laws of creation. If it is not, then there will be no framework upon which these things are made. So, taking the examples that one had given earlier, that even in the so-called physics domain, when the speeds of things are concerned, a proper measurement is such that it is compared or it is made available only with respect to the speed of light. Only then can, after relating these speeds to the speed of light, can they be looked into. Otherwise, measurements which are done in an arbitrary manner turn out to be very faulty. So in the same manner, whatever needs to be contrasted or to be compared must be done in relation first and foremost to the laws of creation. For if that is not the case, the tendency is always that you compare apples with corn, with pears, with ordinary flowers, because there is really no firm basis. The law of the attraction of homogeneity states that should there be any comparison, then there must be something homogeneous to it. And in any case, there is always with men who do their comparison intellectually, there is no homogeneity. There is also no returns, seeing how one thing involves into another and finally a return. There is no way in accordance with the spiritual laws. So that is the basis which is missing. Above all, when human personality need to be looked into, then it must be separated from those who have free will, who already are able to manifest their free will, as compared to those who do not yet or are not matured enough to express their free will in the case of children. So all these are the nuances which many must take into consideration before they start their comparison. And when you look at it very objectively, for to be objective means to look at the framework of the object, the framework of the object that has come into being. That framework always are the laws of nature, or the laws of creation. Question one must ask oneself, where are those who have done this, who have taken into themselves, who have considered these laws of creation before making a comparison or a contrast?
Thank you so much, Gregory, for your answer there. And again, the picture you're painting. Now, you mentioned the spiritual laws there. That is the basis on which we are supposed to compare or examine and weigh and examine, or compare and contrast as well. Now, of course, you mentioned them as spiritual laws, and I'm wondering then, can success be measured only in spiritual terms, or can it also be measured in gross material? We use that today. We haven't used it, but we've used it in the past. Gross material, let's say, earthly terms. So, can we measure? You talked. We're supposed to look in the terms. Weigh and examine within the natural, the laws, spiritual laws. So I'm wondering, so the question is, Gregory, the success, should it be based only or measured, let's say, only on spiritual outcome, or can it also include earthly outcomes? And if you can say how and why. I'm sorry, asking 3 questions there. So.
You yourself will find that which is spiritual, which is considered spiritual, that has to do directly with the intuitions or with the quality of the intuition of men. There are 3 different categories. That of man's intuition, of which the spirit in its activity produces the intuition. There is also the category of the thoughts of men. And finally, the category of the deeds of men, which manifests. These deeds are perceptible using the 5 senses of men. Many a time, success is only considered when the deeds are seen, or when the results of the deeds become manifest. But that is not the only one. There are many who, in their thoughts, are able to contribute to the beauty of the performance of others only through their thoughts. But in their gross material physical deeds, they are not capable for one reason or the other. It could be for health problems. But in their quality of reflection, of deep reflection, they are able to support others. For they had reflected very deeply, one for all and all for one. Will such people now be excluded in the joy of success of another? There are others who are also, in the quality of their intuition, are able to send good thoughts and vibrations towards others such that it will affect or it will impact on the quality of other people's thoughts. And the quality of other people's thoughts now have an impact on the accomplishment of the physical deeds. Do you then exclude those people who, through their ever alert spirit, are able to support others who are not so much alert in spirit, but are alert in their thoughts, and those in their thoughts who have also impacted of those who are capable physically, gross materially, and the deed is now accomplished? Do you exclude those people from it? So these are the three different categories one must consider. And one cannot distance or dismiss these three different categories, or one would say, oh, one is more important than the other. In the accomplishment of a deed, gross materially, you find that these different categories work side by side. That means the intuition supports the human thoughts if they resonate, and the human thoughts support the deeds if they resonate. In that case, you have like an orchestra. The different tones, the different vibrations now produce the melodies, which melodies make it very understandable, make it very joyful. Do you then dismiss other instruments only to listen to one and you play just one tone? So you will find that these things, they are so complementary. It doesn't mean it has to be the same. So when success is measured, success must be looked into only in accordance with the laws of nature, in which success grows materially, which is beneficial to the human personality and to his neighbors, that success which tends to lift them up in accordance with the creative laws, then that is meaningful success, not the success, in quotes, which tend to destroy the environment, to suppress other human spirits, to behave like mercenaries in the destruction of the environment and of fellow human spirits who, like them, have come to experience, to mature, so as to be strong enough in body, in their thoughts, and in their spirits, so that they'll be able to strive back homewards. So success must be considered basically when the three categories are discussed.
Thank you so much, Gregory, for your answer there, and really going into the each category of the deeds, you know, thought and intuition. Um, because let's say again, we need to always have this context and framework in which to understand when we are looking at some situation. um, Now, you've mentioned the intuition, Gregory, a few times, and but then there are people sometimes they're saying they're dealing with some situation and they're saying a part of me thinks you should go direction A, and then another part of me saying direction B, and which is like a conflicting feeling. Now, so and then the person doesn't know which way to turn. Is it direction A or direction B? And then and say this is a situation involving an intimate relationship where, let's say, one person, two love people, let's say two loved ones, sorry, uh, one is saying to the other one that should go this particular way, let's call it direction A, and maybe I'm mixing up too much here, but what I'm pointing to, Gregory, is that sometimes people are not clear, you know, um, like I say, a part of them says A. I mean, we don't even know which part is saying which, but we're just saying a part is saying A, the other one is saying B, a part is saying B. They can't say, uh, they haven't really a surety of knowing which way is the right way, or the best way. Um, so when it is in this, when somebody's in that scenario, um, what do you do there, Gregory? You just wait for the situation to continue and somehow show itself. Okay, go direction A, because you don't know which way to go, and then B. um, yeah. Let me just add one more line on that. Some people say might say, oh, that is your imagination talking, and not the intuition. So basically my question really is, how do you know when you're sort of conflicted, which way to turn?
Well, thanks for this particular question because you've many a personality runs into this particular scenario.
If I can,
Uh,
sorry, before I let you continue, Greg, sorry, I just want to little bit build a more extra picture into it. So I gave example of, let's say, a loved one, but let me build a bit more scenario around that. So let's say one loved one wants the other loved one to change their way or behavior or something like that. And but the way they're going about it, the person is not changing. The other person isn't changing. So they press them to persuade them, to convince them to change their mind. And then they're wondering, how long do I wait for the person to turn change, because they have a love for that person, so they don't want to set deadline. Oh, you must change by this time, and then so this is like a conflicting situation, Gregory. So I just wanted to give it like a practical example of it. So if you can sort of think of in this way when somebody's sort of two people involved, you can say.
Like we were saying, these are scenarios in which many people find themselves. And basically, it is very simple to deal with for those who, through time, had always reflected and listened to their intuition. Before one arrived at that particular scenario, there must have been opportunities to have made alternative decisions, which the individual, due to his state, prefer the pleasant decisions to the more rigorous decisions which we demand so much energy from the others. It is because, very simply, these initial scenarios which man should have learned from, he or she did not learn from it. And therefore, it has to be replayed back to that individual, such that through experiences, they themselves will have to learn to prevent. After all, it is said, prevention is better than cure. So each personality must look deep within themselves to differentiate whether, first, the way they are handling the scenario is only intellectual. For that which is intuitive may not at the initial stage appear logical, but a picture which is shown, which picture requires that the human personality exert itself. But many do not wish it that way. They wish to go along the slippery slope rather than exerting themselves to see a better and a higher picture. And that is why you have a scenario where it becomes like a conundrum. Where should I go? How should I handle it? Because basically they do wish to have the easiest way out, not the way which we strengthen them spiritually or even their thinking, but the most pleasant way out of a scenario, instead of putting their strength and thoughts together to examine this scenario intuitively. Which picture of how to make it beneficial to themselves has already been granted. But no, that is pushed aside. They want the pleasant one in which they don't have to exert themselves. And that is what you find. Be it in war, be it in simple challenges. When it is said, one for all and all for one, the joy of others should be made your joys. The challenges of others should be made your challenge, such that in reflecting about the challenges of others, which challenges you yourself are not involved with yet. In reflecting over it, a solution is found. Which solution you yourself can help to mediate to others, such that when the time comes for a similar challenge to come across your path, because you yourself have found a solution, it is no more a challenge. It is the same case as you wish to do some exercises. You have to walk a distance of, say, 10 miles or 10 kilometers. If initially you have been learning in humility to do 100 yards, 1 kilometer, 2 kilometers, 3 kilometers, the day something forces you to do 5 kilometers, it stretches you. That means to be prepared for the challenges is the solution. That is the alertness that many lack. And because they lack that alertness, they fall into scenarios. Which scenario is to jolt many to open up, to make use of their intuition. So that which has become a conundrum should become a benefit. But we must be honest with ourselves. Where are those who wish to exert themselves, not only spiritually, but also in their thoughts or in their deeds? Many just want that which is pleasant. That which is pleasant doesn't mean that it is at the same time beneficial. For there must be that continuous alertness, the continuous vigilance in all that we do, in our thoughts, in our intuition, and in our deeds. Then many of the things, the scenarios which are mentioned, becomes a matter of course. For when you have gradually learned to play a particular tune, on the day you go to a stage to play that tune, it becomes an integral part of yourself. The sweet melodies which we hear in music did not come overnight, came through practice again and again and again, through the challenges that many face. And in putting themselves together and striving to overcome these challenges, they have made themselves supple. They have made themselves flexible, for they now know how to handle it. And when the time comes, having learned from the experiences of others without bias, they are able to deal with their own scenarios. Many should never forget the human spirit is never alone. There are others here or hereafter who are always sending good thoughts to one's intuition, supporting. But the scenario is when the personality turns away and refuses to make use of that which is of benefit, then there's nothing one can do. Even the angels can do nothing until the human spirit wakes up to its responsibility and stop being a slave to the narrow mindedness which has precipitated that particular scenario which you yourself mentioned.
Thank you so much, Gregory, for your answer and explanation and picture that you painted. I've got a question from a listener, but before I proceed with that, I want to just let the listeners know that this is Bless Radio, and the program is the Spiritual Discussion Program from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. UK time on Tuesday evenings. And the aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail Message by Aptrushi. And if you're interested to know more about the Grail Message or want to get a copy of the Grail Message for yourself, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that. www.grail, Grail, message, MESSAGE.com. And the topic we're discussing tonight is comparing people with others. Comparing people with others. You're welcome to join us with any questions or comments by contacting us on our UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And of course, you're listening to Blessed Radio on, or you can listen to Blessed Radio on Blessed Radio 1. That's the number 1.com. You can also listen to us on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box, Bless Radio 1, that's the number 1, space, live stream. And that's for the live show. You can listen to the recording of this show also on YouTube. Go to youtube.com, and that's the next day usually. You can listen to the recording. So go to youtube.com and type in the search box, Bless Radio 1, the number 1 again, space, Grail Message, space, the topic of the show, which tonight is comparing people with others. And of course, you can listen to other previous shows also on YouTube. Thirdly, we are broadcasting on Zeno. That's ZENO.FM/Bless Radio 1, the number 1 again. Now, Gregory, I mentioned there's a question I've received from a listener, and they're saying, when a customer is comparing competitors, that's healthy, isn't it? I'll just repeat that. When a customer is comparing competitors, that's healthy, isn't it?
Maybe I don't understand the question.
Customers,
comparing competitors. Which competitors?
I'm assuming he or she didn't say what like a product that they're talking about. But I'm just thinking they're just saying, let's say you go to a supermarket and you're comparing one price with one supermarket and another price with another supermarket.
Of course, that is healthy. But the topic of our discussion is the comparison of people. People with free will as opposed or as contrasted to goods without free will.
Right. So a customer is also a person, Let me see. Yeah, but he's comparing other competitors, which is a really an organization. Mm, I
Well, you
suppose.
said buying things. That's why, unless the questioner clarifies what they mean, it becomes very difficult. Then we ourselves will be assuming this is what he or she means.
Right. So please, that listener, if they can please um, how can I say, make the question a bit clearer. Not as any, it's not to say anything like bad about it. It just we just need a little bit more clarification on the question, and with the bearing in mind that we are talking about comparing people with others, meaning other people. So, if you can just please give us, if you are okay with that, to please come back to us with a clearer question for us. So, thank you. Now, so Gregory, in my side, I've got some more questions. I'm just going to see. Okay, so again, there are things happening in the news, so I just will use some example from there. I don't know if it's comparing, but it's about people. So, Gregory, you know, there's an organization called Just Stop Oil. Now, they have a particular way that they campaign. So their aim is to prevent the use of oil now. This is what they say. Uh, or, and they're wanting the government to change their policy and actions. And so they've been, but the way they say that the traditional way of campaigning peacefully uh, doesn't seem to have any resulting in much success. So they have decided to do their still keep peaceful, but make their actions a bit more, how can I say, disruptive. With you can call it direct action, but these protests are at, let's say, big events that the public, sees, like sport events, and they always seem to get in the news with their protests. This is for sure. Because of the disruption that they cause. And so they get big headlines for that in the news. Um, and But somehow, despite being in the news in a lot of headline, is still not causing the government to change to listen to them. Instead, the even government has been using more stricter laws to allow the police to prevent their protests. So, what my question is there, Gregory, is this approach by Just Stop Oil, as I say, which is very disruptive, is it the right way to proceed for them to, get what they want to get, which is to, let's say, make a quick changes to in this current environment of climate change, to make the necessary changes in policy and actions?
People have their wishes, and they may not be privy to the way government works. However, there is also the respect for the wishes of others, even if they will have to hold on a little bit longer. If others who have wishes and just like them decide to become, in quotes, disruptive, do they themselves know the impact of these destructive activities on members, innocent members of the public? Would they themselves be happy if those who have different agenda inflict such on them? So, again, that concept, strictly speaking, of one for all and all for one is still not being considered. There is always do what I wish must be done immediately or I will disrupt everything. Such people at best can be wished well, but they themselves must judge for themselves to find out if such activities are of benefit to other groups who wish to live in peace with others. There is no other thing one may say about it.
Thank you so much, Gregory, for your answer there. Um, this particular group, or not only this particular group, but maybe others as well, think, oh, what we are wanting is something very, because it's the future of humanity. It's we are in such grave danger. If we don't change our ways now, we will. I hear you about respecting each other's sort of freedom to be, to be what we want to be, or do what we want to do, and then, but these people, or certain people like this might be thinking, oh no, this is such a terrible situation. We need to change the humanity's and world's thinking, or government's thinking here. Otherwise, we are going to, well, I don't know, catastrophe will come. Let me say that way. So maybe I'll put it like that. Does the end justify the means?
It is the means that justifies the end in accordance with the creative laws of nature. For it is how the individual or group of individuals go about in experiencing in their activities. It is how they go about it that justify how far they are able to go. Else, you will find that in the reverse case, that particular scenario leads to catastrophe. The end can never justify the means, for that scenario leads to that of a graveyard where all is dead. And in that case, what then happens? But the way people respond to challenges is crucial. How do they go to find a solution? Is it through violence? Many have, to a large extent, succeeded in violence. Many have succeeded in deception. Many have succeeded in stealing. They still get to the end. It is what the reciprocal activities grants man. It is that which gives the feedback. If the reciprocal activity is of benefit, then it raises the human personality. If the reciprocal activity is not of benefit, because these activities which have been initiated by the person have done so much harm, even if they have so-called good in their hearts. If these reciprocal activities suppress others, lead to the damage of other people's personality, or to the death of others, then the reciprocal activities are surely to return here or hereafter. And it is the reciprocal activity that may raise the individual to higher maturity or ensures the individual sinks. That's is the end. The end in the sense that the reciprocal activity now returns to the individual. Like has been said, motion is a law in creation. The motion which is being discussed, in which the end flows back to the beginning. When the end flows back to the beginning and is of benefit, gross materially, in one's thoughts or in one's intuition, whilst one is here, if it's of benefit, then it raises the inner maturity of the personality. When the person has left, then only the intuition is concerned. If the returns intuitively, raises the individual personality in accordance with these creative laws, then it justifies how he or she has gone about it. If, however, the returns are not of benefit to the individual, here, gross materially, or in his thoughts, or in his intuition, of course, the individual sinks. And we have to walk his or her way laboriously again and again. It is not progress when you take one step forward and 3 steps backwards.
Thank you so much, Gregory, for this answer. Maybe I didn't mean to say and justify the means, meaning violence, because I'm pretty sure this group is not at all wanting to commit any violence. But I get your point, what you are saying, that the end doesn't justify the means. So that's what we need to, the impact on others has to be taken into account when you do an action. So thank you for that. I've got another one, question there, Gregory, and I'm very conscious of the time, but I do, and I'm thinking, please take your time to respond, and we'll just end maybe in a short way tonight. So, because this one is also in the news, and let me just tell you the story. So there's a musical band from the UK, I believe, called 1975, and they've been performing concerts in around the world. And recently they played in the UAE, and the last one was Malaysia. And somehow they wanted to make a point, you can say, about, I put this in quotes, LGBT rights, and the way they thought they would sort of show their protest that these rights are not human rights, is how they, let's say, were promoting themselves, what they believe it to be human rights, that the way they wanted to demonstrate that, in this case was the male band member kissed another male band member, which is completely is not allowed in that in those countries, let's say. So, but the without it going into that particular point of that point, my question really is, Gregory, when there are people sort of promoting or wanting another country to change, coming from outside into another country which has a different culture, law to the one the outsider is coming from, and that outsider wishes to effect or demonstrate in some way the change to so that the country takes notice of that and make changes that they want, like. Some people outside, some people comment, oh no, it's like a colonization, somebody like the old time when the West used to come and colonize a country. Some people take it in that way, and others say, or being somebody thinking we are superior to others. So if we, so that could be one point in this point, Gregory, that somebody might think that. But what my real question is, Gregory, if somebody wants to make a statement to sort of show that, oh, this is the way you should be going forward. Like having human rights values. This is what, as I said, I'm not condemning or condoning what their human right they're promoting, but how do you do that in a place which doesn't accept um, that sort of situation? Yeah.
There are human rights and there are human responsibilities. Only when a responsibility has been accomplished will rights emerge. These responsibilities, which have arisen from one's intuitions, the tasks which need to be performed. Only when these tasks have been accomplished intuitively, in thoughts and in deeds, only then can one talk about rights. So the current discussions where people come and talk about human rights without understanding what rights are, that is counterproductive. That is being one-sided. And assuming that they themselves consider that they are right, they don't have any right to go to another country and make such demands on them, because you won't find other people from other countries coming into their own country and make such demands. There are boundaries, just like you have homes, you have states, there are boundaries in every community, there are boundaries in nations. And as you have in a place like the US or the UK, even in Europe, there are bylaws. Which bylaws have been put in place? So no two regions are exactly the same. It is only fair that people should strive to follow these laws to ensure that there is peace and there is harmony.
Thank you so much, Gregory. Um, I've just seen a response from the listener who asked a question earlier, and I feel it's only fair to let that question be, how can I say, looked at. So the listener has now said, the original question was, when a customer is comparing competitors, is that healthy? And now he's clarifying that a competitor is maybe an individual or a body of individuals which on the outside can act in a certain way. Okay, so is it fair that they're subject to evaluation? And he's saying, I think in the effort to grow. So I think he's talking. If I can interpret what the question says, Gregory, is saying, is it okay to compare other people in order to um, evaluate them and to grow and evolve? That's, I think, if I'm getting it right. Um, yes. So I might, if I have my own example, Gregory, maybe there's some famous star that people admire, and there's certain qualities, and you can use that to evaluate how that person is like that, and then maybe they themselves use that to grow for themselves. So is that a healthy way to compare?
Only that which the individual has cultivated through his activities, only that is beneficial to it. Else, looking at others, the scenario which surrounds others through which they have to mature to that particular point, they do not have that scenario before them. They lack that scenario. So, how will they use it to benefit themselves? Most of the time, these things are highly superficial. You find someone who is playing guitar, find another one who is playing the drums. These are different personalities that have developed themselves to get to that place where they are. The best is to compare like for like.
Thank you very much for that. Dear listeners, we've come to the end of the show tonight. Hope you enjoyed the discussion about comparing people with others. Um, Now, I'd just like to, and of course, um, like to just refer you back to the Grail Message to encourage you to pick up the Grail Message and examine it for yourself. And I just want to read you just a few words which are said at the beginning of the Grail Message. And it says, "Free yourself from all darkness. He who makes no effort to grasp the word of the Lord aright burdens himself with guilt." So, if listeners, you would like to know more about the Grail Message or want to get a copy of the Grail Message for yourself, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that www.grail, message, message.com. Gregory, anything you want to say to the listeners to say goodbye?
Wishing the listeners a very beautiful week.
Thanks. And dear listeners, we'll be back as usual next Tuesday from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. UK time with another topic. I also wish you a great week. Good night. God bless.